it's Jessii Vee, and today my Halloween shirt says Creature of the Night because that's what I am. Once again, if you want a Halloween shirt that I designed myself, we have the That's So Creepy shirts. Gray, purple, I have linked them down below. I'm trying to get faster and faster at this. Alright, so in today's video, we're gonna be talking about a very scary story about a person who bought a costume that they could not remove. We're actually gonna be talking about 3 different creepypastas in this video, all around Halloween, all of them very spooky. But before I get into those scary stories, I really wanted to briefly talk about Halloween costume history. I did a whole video before on how scary the old vintage costumes looked back then, and that was because most people used to hand make them themselves, and no offense to those people, sometimes looked a little bit too scary. But there's actually a real reason behind why we even wear Halloween costumes to begin with. Back in the day, to essentially trick the ghosts on Halloween, people would wear scary costumes as a disguise, so they would be mistaken for spirits themselves and left alone by the dead. Because, like I said before, people believed that on Halloween the veil between the living and the dead was broken, and the dead would like walk among us. So people thought that if they looked like the creepy spirits and literally dressed up like them, the spirits wouldn't recognize them as humans and would leave them alone. I literally had no idea about this. I thought that people just wore costumes because it was fun, which is what it's become nowadays. But back then, they were literally trying to disguise themselves from the ghosts. There's also a reason why black and orange are like the colors of Halloween. Like, people wear black and orange makeup and Halloween costumes and black and orange decor everywhere. And those 2 colors started because apparently black represents the death of summer and orange represents the autumn harvest season. So those 2 together are Halloween in a nutshell. And that's why we always associate those 2 color combinations with Halloween. Isn't it interesting how every holiday has like color combos? Like Valentine's Day is like red and pink, Christmas is green and red, Halloween is black and orange, Easter is like pastel colors. I love it. So the first story I want to talk about is this man who thought he saw black-eyed children come to his door on Halloween. Now this story is very, very similar to the babysitting story that I told you guys a couple videos ago. So I'm going to talk about it very briefly just because it's so similar, but oh my gosh, this one is scarier. So it's about this guy who was handing out candy on Halloween. It got really late, so he decided to go to bed. Right before he went to bed, he heard a knock on his door. When he opened the door, he saw 2 children standing on his porch. But he says they weren't wearing costumes and they were the strangest children he had ever seen. He said their skin was waxy and ghostly white. Their eyes were completely black. Their teeth were jagged and were almost too big to fit inside their mouths. And they were just wearing normal clothes, plaid shirts, jeans, shoes. So confused, the man asked them,
"What are you 2 supposed to be? Some sort of monsters?"
And the children's faces turned into this giant grin as they said,
"No. Today we're dressed as humans."
So he slammed the door, ran inside absolutely terrified, and they started pounding on his door for what seemed like half an hour. And then suddenly it stopped and he never saw those kids ever again. So yeah, just look out for black-eyed children on Halloween. Be careful, guys. This next story is called the Halloween costume. This is about a 10-year-old girl who was very, very sick with a fever on Halloween, and the doctor had given her mother strict instructions to make sure that she stayed in bed to get better. Now, unfortunately, there was a Halloween party going on downstairs and she had to miss out on all the fun. So while she was sick, lying in bed trying to sleep, she could hear people laughing downstairs, she could hear the music downstairs. That would be horrible. Now, as she lied in her bed, she had this very strange feeling. Dark shadows gathered in the corners of her room as she tried to tell herself that they were all in her head. And suddenly there was a knock on her bedroom door and the door slightly creaked open to reveal her uncle's face. He was just checking up on her to make sure that she was okay.
"How's the party going?"
she asked him.
"It's good. I'm actually just about to put on my Halloween costume to scare everybody out of their wits."
"Is it really scary? Can I see it?"
"Yeah, it's extremely scary and it might scare you too much."
But she pleaded with him to see his scary Halloween costume once he had put it on. So he finally agreed.
"Alright, once I get dressed up, I'll come in and show you my costume, but you have to promise that you won't be too scared."
So she nodded and he he left the room. Suddenly, everything seemed eerily quiet and she could no longer hear anything coming from downstairs. The room was very dark, the shadows in the corners of her room were growing again. And just then she heard the sound of her bedroom door opening and scuffling on her floor. And she noticed this figure in the shadows of her room. The figure was so small, no higher than a table. It was crouched on the ground with its back turned to her. It almost looked like it was covered in this black cloak. The figure slowly turned to face her, and she was trying her best not to show how frightened she was because she told her uncle she would not be afraid of his costume. But the face was hideous. It was a dead, pale face with a long pointed nose. There were no eyes, just small black holes in the mask. And her uncle was right. His costume was too scary, and she actually began to panic. She was staring at the horrible mask as it got closer and closer. It was basically right beside her bed, so she couldn't take it anymore and threw the covers over her head. And just before she was about to scream, she heard a knock on her bedroom door.
Okay, I'm ready. Can I come in now?
It was her uncle at the door. And that's how the story ends. So clearly whatever creature was in her bedroom was not her uncle in the costume. So that story was definitely kind of creepy, and I feel so bad for this girl. Like, she's sick and she has a monster in her room. All right, and the last creepypasta is called The Mask That Stayed. And this is the one about the costume that would not come off. This story is about a kid who went to a secondhand shop to get a Halloween costume. He was searching through bins of old masks when finally he came across one that he was instantly drawn to. It was this red skull looking mask that had this large smiling mouth with sharp teeth. And what was strange was when he brought it up to the cashier took one look at it and was like,
Oh, that one. You can have that one for free.
and as strange as that was, the boy was just happy he was able to get a free Halloween costume. And I don't know about you guys, but if a cashier looked at the mask I was trying to buy like that, I probably wouldn't buy it. He went to a Halloween party that night, proudly wearing his new mask around, hoping it would scare some of his friends. And he got so many compliments that night about how freaky it was. People even said it looked too real. That night when he got home, he went into the washroom to shower and tried to take his mask off. But the thing is, it wouldn't budge. And he found it strange because he didn't put the mask on with glue or anything. He literally just put the elastic loops around his ears. But now it wasn't coming off, and he was tugging at his mask on his face for what seemed like ages. He eventually had to stand in the shower in the hot water hoping that would help. And after a while, it finally started to peel off. And when he looked in the mirror afterwards, his face was so red it almost looked like it was completely covered in rashes and blisters. He went to bed, and in the morning his face felt so itchy and sore. And when he felt his cheeks, he got so worried because his skin felt thick and bumpy and just rubbery and strange. He ran into the washroom, and as soon as he looked into the mirror, his heart stopped. The red mask was growing back on his face, poking through his skin slowly and forming once again. How horrible would that be? And that's how the story ends. So it's almost like even though he can peel off the mask, it will just grow back through his skin anyways. Imagine always being a red skeleton. No, thank you. And before I end this video, I really want to show you this comic style story that I found online that's so creepy, and here's how it goes. Good night, pumpkin, sleep tight. So this father is like tucking in his child, and she says, but dad, there's a monster in the closet. So he walks over to the closet and he's like, I promise you there are no monsters here. And then he opens the closet, and sitting there is his daughter, and she says, Dad, there's someone in my bed. So it's like, which one's the actual monster? The one in the closet or the one in the bed? What the heck? Anyways, guys, that is the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like me telling you guys all of these creepypastas and stuff, give this video a thumbs up and let me know. Don't forget, if you would like a That's So Creepy shirt, I have linked it down below. But I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!